In Britain, it's being said already that the next British Prime Minister will be Nigel Farage. We're talking about election 4 years away, but he's the head of the Anti-Immigration Reform Party. He won only 5 seats at the last election, but polls last month were saying, look, this guy, the Reform's already head of both Labour and the Conservatives. But suddenly Farage is in trouble. First, Donald Trump's megaphone, ex-owner Elon Musk, said Farage didn't have what it takes and should be replaced. Not sure how Elon Musk has had the time to actually research these things, but there. And now one of Farage's MPs, multimillionaire Rupert Lowe, has attacked Farage's leadership and been accused in turn of being investigated by the party and even talk of police for making threats of violence against Reform's chairman. Joining me from London is writer, broadcaster and presenter Esther Krakue. Esther, great to see you. What is this fight really about? I'm hearing from both sides and I'm not sure whose side I should be on.
Yeah, well, this is an uncomfortable situation that Reform is finding itself in because it's a very new party. And so it has to kind of establish protocols when it comes to MPs and what is appropriate behavior. Now, Rupert Lowe is alleging that this is basically a smear campaign and a way to wedge him out of the party because he's had some sort of differences with Nigel's leadership and Zia Youssef, who's the chairman of the party. But Reform is alleging that, there was a bust-up with a Labour minister, cabinet minister, before the Christmas recess in Westminster, that it was under investigation, and 2 members of staff have also come forward alleging inappropriate conduct by Mr. Lowe in the interim period. So Mr. Lowe thinks that it's because of his outspoken criticisms of Nigel Farage's leadership that he's basically being investigated and forced out and has had the whip removed. But Nigel Farage is saying actually there have been internal problems that we've kept under wraps, but we are investigating. They've actually appointed a KC, so a barrister, to investigate this and to see if they can set in place some party processes. Now, I know from insiders in Reform that have told me that the reason for this is because Labour and the Conservatives have had scandal after scandal involving MPs and lack of action when there's been a scandal or something worth investigating brewing. I'm pretty sure the most infamous example is obviously the rise of anti-Semitism under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership in the Labour Party that was allowed to go on unfettered. And Reform are trying to avoid all of that and seem like a serious party and have proper structures and protocols in place. The problem they have is Rupert Lowe is one of their most popular MPs, and he has really led the charge, particularly when it came to the grooming gang scandal and calling for a national inquiry. He's really held MPs and the government's feet to the fire when it comes to many issues in the party. So what Reform is gambling on is basically that people will not remember this 4 years down the line if Reform actually looks like a functioning party that can really challenge the Westminster status quo and get people back to where their base really wants the country to be. But on Rupert Lowe's side, he's saying, this could be the unfolding of the Reform Party in its crib. If they can't manage 5 MPs, how can they run Westminster and effectively the country? So it's going to be interesting to see where this falls. But it looks like Nigel Farage is really taking a very firm stance on this.
Yeah, I saw Rupert Lowe say, no, the complaints from staffers weren't about me, but other staff, but I don't know where the truth lies. But, we've seen this with Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party here. You get a small party, charismatic leader, other people come in thinking, I can make something of this. In fact, I can do it myself. And I just wonder whether there's a little bit of a very ambitious man thinking he's bigger than the guy that actually created the whole movement.
Well, I mean, it's complicated because Rupert Lowe has never given the impression that he wants to be leader. However, it is quite uncommon for an MP in a party, particularly a small party, to be so vocal against the leader and the leadership. And so whether that was a wise move on Rupert Lowe's part is questionable. Is this something that he could have had a conversation with Nigel? And I'm sure he has his number. There are only 5 MPs in Reform in Parliament. But on the other hand, he seems to want to stick firm to his principles. And whether that's something that Reform can really deal with is another question.
Well, it's just, if it had given more another year, I would have started my Esther Krakue for political leadership movement. But we want to keep you on this show, so they'll have to wait. Thank you so much for your time, Esther.